In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how Java handles tables. So continuing on with an exploration into how output is formatted. Now we've done system.out.print, system.out.println. So this one's going to be a new one. So we're going to type out system.out.format. So within the output section of the system commands, there's not only print, println, but there's also something called format, which acts a little bit differently. So whenever we're using a format, there's typically two components. One, which is a string. So we're going to use quotation marks for this, which sets what the output is going to look like. And then it's followed by what the output actually is. So I'll show you how that works. We're going to create, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 columns in our table, and we're going to put some information in it. So the way we create a column is we begin with a percentage sign. We follow it by how many spaces are going to be in that column. And then we follow it with a letter code, which gives us a suggestion of what kind of information is going to be at that. So we're going to be putting out string data. So we're going to have everything act like text. So we put an S here for string. And then I'm going to put a space, and then I'm going to repeat the same thing because we have not just one, we've got 2, we've got 3, we've got 4, and then that's it. So this format line sets us up with 4 columns of information. Each of them has 10 spaces to go in it. Okay, so now what we need to send to format is a series of parameters. The first parameter is the table setup, followed by what kind of information is going to go in those columns. So some of these lines can be really long, and we're definitely going to have a few in this program. So we separate all the different parameters by a comma here. And then the first one, we're going to do sports teams. So we're going to put team. The second column is going to be wins. The next one is going to be losses. And then we're going to follow it by the captain of the team. So we're going to put the captain's name. Some of these lines of code will be longer than the visual space that we're looking at here, but that's okay. Follow along and do your best to kind of keep up with that. So if you run, let's see what happens. We get, there we go, team, wins, losses, and captain. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to put information that is going to fit all those. Now, whenever I'm doing this, I really like to copy and paste the lines, because one of the, you can get your tables to work regardless, but these numbers should be identical for each of the columns. So column 2 is always going to be a width of 10. Don't, think, oh, my output didn't work out quite well. I'm going to shave a couple characters off this and then add a couple to that. That's not how to do it. The columns should be the same size. So for the next line of code, what we'll do is we'll make up an animal that this team is going to be. So I'm going to go with penguins. There we go. And the penguins' wins and losses, let's say it's going to be 3. And let's follow this by 4. And then the captain's name, I'm not going to be very creative. I'm just going to write the name of the team backwards. So SNIUGNEP. Okay. So captain is the captain of the Penguins team. So let's run this, take a look at what it looks like. Then we're going to start some finessing here. All right, so there's a problem here, is that we have our first row here, and then the second row follows it immediately. Now, there is no such thing as format ln, and we'll probably encounter where this poses a challenge, but putting \n here is going to cause us some problems. So what we like to do is, typically for tables, they're separated by this. So system.out.println with nothing in it. So all this does is it serves the purpose of skipping down to the next line. So this is, I'll put a comment here, an empty line. There we go. Okay, so if I run this, it's going to look like this. Now, what we want to do is we also want to format our table so that the information is shown correctly. If you know anything about tables or spreadsheets, text information should be aligned to the left so you can alphabetize it. Number information is always aligned to the right so that it makes it easier to add, subtract, whatever operation you're doing on the table. So what we want to do is we want to take all of the text data and then move that to the left-hand side. So the way that we do that is you need to change this from a %10s to a %-10s. And putting the negative here makes it align to the left. That's the easiest way to explain that. So if I do this and this, and then run it again, this is what we get. But if you take a look here, actually this doesn't cause a problem. So because we've put a space in between these items, there's a space in between the columns, which is, I really like that kind of happens automatically. We don't have to do any work to achieve that, because typically you want space between your columns anyway. So format's actually pretty nice to us. So what I want to do is I'm going to put another line here right underneath and show you a bit of an issue. Okay, so I'm not going to put a println just yet, just specifically because I want to show you something. So the next team here is going to be unicorns. And then what I'm going to do is put the captain's names. There we go. I think that's unicorns backwards. So if I run this, again, we're going to get that issue because I didn't put the empty line, that it's going to kind of go over like this. So what I'm going to do, just for this example, I'm going to put a \n here after this line to show you what happens. Now, take a look at this, and then I'll explain what is going on here. So we get our first line as just fine. We get our second line as just fine, but the third line has a mysterious space right at the beginning. I guarantee that there is nothing on this line that causes that. So what has happened is the column width is 10 spaces. Let's count how many characters Penguins backwards is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what is happening is we get 8. This is the 9th character, if you want to treat it like that. So it's 9 characters in a space that's designed for 10 characters. So where does that extra space go? So what it does is it prints all of this, goes down to the next line, and then continues to create space for the column so that one leftover character, which is a space, ends up down on the next line. And this always happens when you have your last column is left aligned and it's larger than the actual amount of characters. So that is why we don't do that. We want to make an empty line. There's another way around this where you can make one extra column that you don't need, and the column only contains a \n. That's also okay. This typically keeps it a little bit better organized. So our last one here, I'm going to system.out.println. There we go. And then I'm going to copy and paste my format. And then I'm going to put, this is going to be the Brachiosauruses, or I guess Brachiosauri, you might pluralize that. So Brachiosauri. And, I forgot to change the wins losses here. So we'll make this one 7 and 0. For this last one, what I'll show you is you can put, instead of text, let's see what happens if we put in actual values. And we're going to do a little bit more work with values later, but let's see what happens if we do that. So we've got Brachiosauri, and then I'm going to put this IRUASOIHCARB. There we go. So that's a bit of a long one. I'm going to run this, see what we get. So two things are important here. One is it was totally fine if we didn't put text values, but we put numerical values here. So you can put either one. Because we put the S here, it's going to treat it as though it's text, which is nice because that's what we want in the output. And so we get the 1 and the 6 here. But you can see that this was too long and it pushed the next column over. So this is a column with a width of 10, which goes right up against the word. And then this is also in a column of 10, which ends like right around here. So the 2 extra characters pushes the remainder over. So this is why you have to be careful about your column widths. And it's always better to kind of have it organized ahead of time. Like if you know what kind of information you have, there is a way to construct these values at runtime, but we're not there yet. So for now, make sure that you're organized maybe a little bit ahead of a time, because you don't want to have a table with 40 pieces of information, then you have to go back and change all of them individually. So I'm going to switch these to 8. Switch this to an 8. Go to 8. 8. 8. 8. 8, and because I know that the same amount of characters are here as at the end, which is why I chose those captain names, just to save myself some time, I should be able to get away with this for my table setup. There we go. And here I've got a perfectly formed table with all the text information on the left, numerical information on the right. Everything takes up 1 line. And just a further note, do note that typically when you're outputting this, the heading of the numerical information is also aligned with that numerical information. So the word wins, while it's a word, is aligned to the right because that column is going to be aligned to the right. So format is really great for making tables and keeping things organized. Just make sure that your columns are always the same width and you're not trying to cheat by, nudging one of them by a few characters here or there.